Shortly after midnight on the 26th of September, 1983, an alarm went off in a bunker south of Moscow. The bunker was called Serpukhov 15, the command center for the Soviet satellite early warning system. It was built to spot an American launch in the first seconds from the heat of the rocket engine. The duty officer that night was a lieutenant colonel named Stanislav Petrov. By one account, he was standing in for a senior officer who could not take the shift. His own specialty was the computer itself. He spent his days finding faults in the machine he was now watching.
The siren howled, but I just sat there for a few seconds, staring at the big, backlit, red screen with the word launch on it.
One missile. Then the system reported 4 more. The alert escalated from launch to missile strike. It was telling him a nuclear attack was underway. His job was written down. Report what the system reports. Pass it up. Let the commanders decide.
All I had to do was to reach for the phone, to raise the direct line to our top commanders, but I couldn't move.
Above him were men with minutes to decide, under a doctrine that a first strike must be answered at once. Below him was a screen, built by his country's best engineers, insisting 5 missiles were already in the air. And nothing in his training covered what to do if he simply did not believe it. Petrov's reason for doubting the machine was not technical. It was arithmetic. If the United States were truly opening a nuclear war, it would not open it with 5 missiles. It would launch hundreds at once to destroy the ability to answer. 5 was not an attack. 5 was a glitch. There was a second check. Ground radar would see the missiles once they crossed the horizon. But radar cannot see over the horizon, so it would only confirm the attack far too late to matter. So he picked up the phone and reported a malfunction. Not silence. A judgment, on the record, with his name on it.
I knew perfectly well that nobody would be able to correct my mistake if I had made one. 23 minutes later I realized that nothing had happened.
A state commission found the cause 2 months later, and the cause was almost beautiful. It was sunlight. Sunlight reflecting off the tops of high-altitude clouds, near the autumn equinox, at exactly the wrong angle. The satellite's orbits carried them where that reflection lined up perfectly with the sensors and looked like a rocket plume. The machine was not broken. It reported what it saw. It had no concept of what it was looking at. Petrov was praised, then reprimanded, because in the middle of all that he had not kept his logbook properly. He got no reward. He was moved aside, retired early, had a breakdown, and lived on a small pension. The world learned none of it until 1998, when his commanding officer published his memoirs. Petrov is remembered because his story is dramatic. He is not remembered because it was rare. On the 9th of November, 1979, a training tape was loaded into the live system at Cheyenne Mountain. Displays at the Pentagon and Strategic Air Command filled with roughly 1,400 Soviet missiles, arriving at once. Interceptors launched. The National Airborne Command Post took off from Andrews, without the president on board. It took 6 minutes to establish that none of it was real. 7 months later it happened again, for a reason almost too small to believe. The Secretary of Defense described it to President Carter in a memo 4 days afterwards.
The mini-computer associated with Channel 8 spuriously began introducing random 2s into the output message.
A message that should have been a string of zeros filled with the digit 2. The displays read those digits as missiles. 200 submarine-launched missiles. Then 2,020 intercontinental ones. Bomber crews were ordered to their aircraft and started their engines. A Pacific Command post got airborne. What exposed it was an accident of wiring. NORAD's own displays, closest to the source, showed nothing. The fault was traced to a single integrated circuit, reported at the time to have cost 46 cents. It could not be made to fail again in testing. 3 days later it recurred anyway, during NORAD's own checks. Every one of these ended the same way. Someone with a name looked at the screen and decided not to believe it. Nuclear systems kept a human in the loop, because everyone understood what the loop was for. Financial markets removed him. On the 6th of May, 2010, at 2:32 in the afternoon, the market began to come apart. A large fund had begun an automatic sale of 75,000 futures contracts, about $4.1 billion. Regulators never named the firm. What they published was the algorithm's setting, and that setting is the whole story.
Target and execution rate set to 9% of the trading volume calculated over the previous minute. But without regard to price or time.
Without regard to price. As other machines sold, volume rose. As volume rose, it sold faster, which raised volume again. The same firm had sold as much before, with a system that watched price and time. That sale took over 5 hours. This one took about 20 minutes. The market fell just under 1,000 points, roughly 9%, in half an hour. What stopped it was not a person. At 2:45 and 28 seconds, a safeguard paused trading for 5 seconds. 5 seconds was enough. Prices stabilized. Nobody had decided anything. A timer had. 2 years later, a firm called Knight Capital deployed new code to 8 servers. 7 received it. 1 did not. The update reused an old flag, and on that stale server the flag woke a program retired years earlier. 212 orders became 4 million trades, and $440 million in 45 minutes. Automated warnings had started 90 minutes before the opening bell. 97 of them. Nobody acted on any. There is a version of this story where the lesson is simple. Machines fail, humans catch them. Keep a human in the loop. On the 3rd of July, 1988, that lesson ran in reverse. An American cruiser in the Strait of Hormuz was tracking an aircraft climbing out of Bandar Abbas. It was Iran Air Flight 655, an Airbus, 7 minutes into a 28-minute hop across the Gulf. It was inside a published commercial corridor, on a normal flight plan, climbing steadily, exactly where an airliner should be. The ship fired. 290 people died, more than 60 of them children. The official investigation is why this story belongs here, and almost nobody quotes it correctly.
The Aegis combat system's performance was excellent. It functioned as designed. At no time did Iran Air 655 actually descend in altitude prior to engagement.
The system showed the aircraft climbing through 12,900 feet, 3 seconds before it was hit. A journalist later reconstructed what was happening at the console, and it is the worst sentence in the account. The screen showed the plane at 12,000 feet, climbing. The operator shouted 7,800, descending. The report gave the failure a name. Scenario fulfillment, making the evidence fit the story already in the room. The men were not stupid and not cowards. They were frightened, in a combat zone, with seconds to decide. Which is the uncomfortable half of the human veto. It is only worth having if the human is better than the machine that day. So where is the human veto now, when the machines are far harder to argue with? On paper, it exists.
In all cases, the United States will maintain a human in the loop. For all actions critical to informing and executing decisions by the President.
That is the 2022 Nuclear Posture Review. A policy statement, not a law, and it has no successor. In November 2024, in Lima, the American and Chinese presidents put something similar on paper.
The two leaders affirmed the need to maintain human control over the decision to use nuclear weapons.
One sentence, in a readout, from a meeting. Not a treaty. Not binding. Nothing has been built on it since. The Pentagon's rule on autonomous weapons requires appropriate levels of human judgment over the use of force. As of mid-2026, that directive is being rewritten, and whether the phrase survives is not public. There is also no new nuclear posture review planned. The senior policy official told the Senate so in March. So the strongest safeguard is a sentence in an aging document and a line in a press release. The UN Secretary General is blunter.
Human control over the use of force is essential. We cannot delegate life or death decisions to machines.
Petrov did not save the world single-handed. What he did was smaller and much harder to write into a policy. He looked at a machine he had helped build and disagreed with it. They were lucky it was him on shift that night. Follow for one machine truth a day.